So what I'm going to try to attempt to do is give you a timeline or an understanding of what everyone went through with all the communities when February, what was that, 20th happened, 19th happened? And some of you guys have seen this. And so we will start with, what we started with was notifying all the municipalities on Sunday as well as the Corps, and let them know that the situation was setting up for a not pretty one. The fact that we had 2 feet of snow on the ground, we were expecting several inches of rain, and it was still 30 degrees out. And then it was slowly warmed up. So what we did was we notified all our communities, including INDOT, GLEM, which is our maintenance folks for the pump station, the Army Corps, and then ultimately I emailed the board at 9 o'clock later on that night when all the models were being consistent. I like this, by the way. It's much better than my PowerPoint.
I agree. So
this is the gauge that everyone usually watches at Holman Avenue in Munster. You will see the flood of record is 17.3. This is the gauge this is what they were anticipating on that Sunday, which was 16.3. It went down just a little bit during Monday, but then they brought it back up to the level of 16.3, which causes concern for a lot of people. People were asking what they could do. They were nervous. So as opposed to just being nervous at home, they took their nervous energy and started filling sandbags at the Public Works facility in Munster. And those sandbags either made it to all parts of basically the county. I think some of the sandbags actually made it down to Shelby down in Kankakee because they were in need of assistance. Monday night, I came back from an event and I called one of the folks in our group, Chief Timber from Highland. He was awake. I knew he was awake at 10 o'clock because he doesn't go to bed till 2. So I had nervous energy, so I went and hung out with him. We reviewed all the models and the radar and watched all the things that we could, and we decided that it was time to notify the city of Hammond and the town of Munster to start putting up the closure at Northcott Bridge, which is one of our areas that is affected first. I first texted them, but at 12:10 they were asleep, and then we decided to call them. So this is Northcott Bridge. Ultimately, what it looked like with all that debris. When I said they were coming down and everything was coming down, tree houses, you name it, that was coming down and basically got stuck at the bridge. Hammond contacted Dyer Construction, which ultimately later on, I think Wednesday or Thursday, and they had that removed from the system. So that's another view that you're looking if you're looking to the west. Closure. So after we called Munster and Hammond, we got a call from Griffith in a panic that the blockage at the Katy Marsh was causing the water to back up. The water was about to go over the Katy Marsh, and this is important for us is this Katy Marsh deep tunnel relieves a lot of the tension on Hart's Ditch, which was already seeing a spike. So we were able to get the blockage removed with the help of Galland at about 3:30, and then we were able to see some reduction in Hart's Ditch as well as other areas along the system. We contacted WJLB to notify them as a part of our plan to let them know, we were starting to close down roads, which we closed down Northcott, and that we were going to close down others along the system.
And not to interrupt, Dan, but everybody that's new, everything here, it moves west to east. So everything rises and floods first on the west side of the county and moves its way east. That's why everything is happening on the west side. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It gives me a break to talk. Earlier Tuesday morning, we called WLTH, let them know that if they needed us, that we were available. At this point, the water hadn't reached Gary yet, but if in the event that we would need them, we would, we were here to talk to them. Ultimately, that station with the tower flooded, which caused them to go off the air, which we've sort of lost some transmission capabilities over there. And so we're going to work hopefully to fix that at a later date. At 9 o'clock later that day, we met with all of our groups that we talked to or we emailed on Sunday to see what type of needs that they needed. This is all part of our plan. We opened what they call the Emergency Operations Center. We called NIPSCO and we had the Corps on the phone to make sure that they were seeing what we were seeing. This is still early on in the event, and we needed to make sure, if you see, you're going to see, I think the gauge station showed was going straight up. One of the helpers for us is the Deep Tunnel Project in Chicago. It doesn't directly help us, but indirectly it does help us by getting water off of Thorn Creek, ultimately helping us. We called MWRD, which is Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. They said their gate was open. They ultimately took in 2.5 billion gallons into their reservoir, which eased some of the issue that we had. But it's one of those things, another tool. We don't have control over them. The Army Corps doesn't have control over them. But we called them, and they said they had it open already Tuesday morning.
You said billion with a B, right?
Billions, okay. 2.5 billion gallons. So at 10:30, we discussed if there was any other pressing matters. We closed down Bernice Road, which is the road between Munster and Lansing. We all agreed to meet at 1:30 that afternoon to give some more time to get out there to figure out what's going on. We also did realize that we need some better communications through walkie-talkies, which is something that we're pursuing with the county. At 1:30, it seemed to be that we were going to have to close down Kennedy Avenue. Now, as you said, Mr. Chairman, water flows east and west, so we're slowly expanding our issues. Our issues are starting to expand both ways as far as what places are being affected. And so Kennedy was the next logical place. Ultimately, we were gonna raise Kennedy Avenue, but at this point in time, it was going to get to a point where that was a potential to close. Ultimately, they closed that road at about 12:30 on Wednesday morning. So that was discussed, and Highland and Hammond were in constant contact. There's a great picture of me just because people thought it was funny. We talked to the Chicago media as well as the Times almost probably every other hour to make sure the communication was out there. There were no stories out there that were false or things that were not being said or perceived. Everything was going according to what we had planned, although it was a little bit nerve-wracking. We had a plan and we stuck with it according to what, between us and what the Army Corps have developed for us as far as a maintenance and operation plan. So the next places that we needed to close as it expands its footprint is Chase and Harrison. You heard earlier in my report, those will both be raised. Harrison will be raised. Chase Street will be sort of an overpass in that area, whereas opposed to they have the posts and panels there now. So Gary then took it upon themselves as a part of our plan to close down Chase Street at 35th and to close down Harrison Street as it leads into Gilroy Stadium and IUN. And there's your closure on 35th. Harrison was a little bit after the days that wasn't as bad. It had seen better days, but that is roughly what it was to be. So that was their closures. Tuesday night, we received a call. I didn't receive a call. The town of Munster received a call from a resident saying that there was water coming through a wall. I happened to be next to someone from the town of Munster, and I said I would go check it out. At first, I was a little bit skeptical, honestly, and then when we went there and I walked it with the flashlight, there was about 600 feet of wall that was leaking through. So we talked to our partners at the Corps. They said just keep monitoring it. They would send out a team in the morning, and they did, and they gave us instructions on how to fix it. I really wish this video would work at this point. But if you can see, oh, now I can get to draw maybe. Draw. I'm going to draw. Watch. So if you can see, oh no, I can't draw now. Hold on. Let me hit the. Oh, look at that. Ah, see? Uh-huh. Finger paint. I mean, I really wish I had this in high school. And then here, so if this was actually a video you could see, you would see the water pouring out of that seam and then underneath the wall itself. Now that wall is decorative, but imagine 600 feet of this. It kept on going, And so ultimately we dug a trench and, let's see if I can do this. And now I feel like I'm CNN on the magic board here. So that's what they did. They monitored it. We trenched it. We didn't trench it. Gatlin trenched it. We ended up pumping it over. And I know Bill has some comments about what happened, didn't happen, what he would think to go on in the future. So this is the gauge. So a Tuesday night, finally at 9:30, it crested. As you can see, it was almost just directly vertical for a while, which we were at a point where we didn't know when this was going to end.
That's the gauge that's due south.
That's the gauge that's located just on 30, just almost by the town hall on Dyer.
For the people in the audience, you may want to.
Oh, sorry.
Water's moving from the south to the north. It's cresting in the south, and we know that we're going to have major events in the north when we see gauges go high.
This is an aerial. Dyer put up a drone up in the air, and they took a picture aerial. This is 213th and Dyer. There's a church here on the right side, right corner, and then this is considerable time after the event, so it doesn't really give you everything that it could have been, but an idea. This is looking from Wicker Park to Hawthorne. I believe that is Wednesday morning. So you see how high you're talking. You're talking about 2.5 feet before it sort of goes over the top, roughly.
That's a gauge in the middle, right?
Yeah, that's the USGS gauge at Munster. So that hit 10 point something or 11 something. Was it 11? 11 something at that point. And then Bill will talk about more about that. This is as you're looking down on Kennedy Avenue, from the west looking to the east. I'm going to draw again. So the closures are here in Highland and here in Hammond. And you can see this was on Thursday afternoon, or Friday morning. Friday morning, we took this drone just because we could get it up, but the water was actually up to just below the deck. So that becomes a critical state for us when we have to close this down. That's also a part of the plan for us is that, I think it's 14.5. I'm going to go to phone a friend here. Yeah. So at 14.5, that's when we close this down to protect the road, because you don't want this running up against.
Can you go back to that picture? I just wanted to highlight a reference point.
You're tempting me here.
Going backwards?
Yeah.
Yeah, lower left, just off the screen is
Yes.
Wendy's and then Cracker Barrel for reference for folks who might know.
Yeah. Lower left is the new hotels are upper left. The upper right is where that dome is Highland Public Works.
And Dan, you mentioned that the bridge will eventually be raised to the height of at or near the pedestrian bridge that's just to the east, correct?
That's correct. The way it's designed now is there will be no closure. I'm going to draw again. Is you see the wall here, that's a part of the levee, and that's a part of the levee. So we filled in the gap. So ultimately, when this is all done, that will be as high as that levee wall. So there will be no closure needed. So you will be able to drive over it, transportation will be working, and people will be able to get on their way. You know, a lot of people said, well, why did you have to close? We spend all this money fixing this, and that's just a part of it. The way this was designed was it wasn't designed for all the roads to be raised. That would have added the cost. So now what we're doing now is fixing it and making sure that our plan works with the Army Corps.
And Dan, when we finish raising this bridge and Harrison Street and what's the other one? 35th.
35th, yep.
You might want to tell the public how many sandbags we're going to.
Well, for 35th and Chase, we won't have to put up that panel and post, which is a very time-consuming tedious because of all the small parts that are involved and the screws and the bolts that need to be put in there. The sandbags at, I'm going to have to phone more friends. The sandbags at Harrison, I'm guessing 3,500, but I won't put them on the spot. Is roughly that many. You'll see a picture of what we did on Georgia here later on in this program that will help show that as well. This picture on your left is a picture from the pedestrian bridge looking to the west on how high it was, Kennedy Avenue still, and then on the bottom right are pictures of you looking to the west as to how much the water. Now you see the water as it relates to how high it is on the wall isn't that high. Our main concern at that point in time, was simply Hart's Ditch and how much water it could get out to these places. It was constricted. We couldn't get it out to the areas that we have some storage capabilities. Which this was a video. This is the excavator that was used by Gatlin to take out the debris in Katy Marsh. That's another picture of how much debris was coming down the Katy Marsh. It was so thick that you just couldn't get to it. And the trash rack was not operable at that time. This is the Bricky Bowl, if you're familiar, anyone in Hobart. That had filled up. That's actually an offshoot of Duck Creek, something that we're working to fix as well as a part of that railroad bridge. And then Wednesday happens, and now I say, here comes our bigger footprint. So we're still battling Kennedy, we're still battling Northcott, we still have Bernice Road. We have some other issues. We have a leaky wall. Now we add into it, Georgia and Martin Luther King both need to be shut down. Georgia is designed to overtop, and you'll be a picture later on for that. And Martin Luther King was overtopping just, let's see, that would be just north of 94. So we had to close down both those north-south thoroughfares. And this is some of the pictures. The one, your top left, is a picture from Georgia Street looking to the west. The top right is Georgia looking to the east. And then the one here on the bottom, I believe, is Georgia as well, looking a little bit further back, closer to the expressway, as how much water it's taking in as far as building up. And the more buildup we had, the more opportunities there were for some backflow from the riverside to the land side, which we ultimately had to deal with and close down some of these. We had to close down some of these gates. To your left is the WLTH tower. To your right, believe it or not, are the 4 culverts that run underneath the railroad track. That I have pictures later on that show you what they used to look like in '08. It's not as bad as what it looks. That's just like straw or grassy stuff. It was still working its way underneath. There was no blockage. But these are things that we constantly monitor to make sure that there was nothing blocking the system, so we could keep on making sure the system worked. Just how high it was getting in other places, even though some folks believe it was not a major rain event. This is an area off of Columbia Avenue. This is just to depict, we did have a lot of space within the river during the event. This was taken off of Columbia Avenue looking to the west. Munster's in the foreground, so we did have capacity in that area. This is looking off Columbia Avenue, looking to its east. Sorry for all the great pictures. And this is Columbia Avenue. If you see that silver line there, that is the water line that runs from Hammond to Munster. So there was debris and such kicking it up against that, but we never had to close down Columbia. In past years, Columbia and Northcott were a closure at the same time because of elevation. We raised Columbia Avenue, and Columbia Avenue didn't need to be closed, and that's what we hope to do throughout the system. This is the backyards of Southmore, just so that you have an idea. Never went into the backyards. Still more. And so then we got into, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, this is Wednesday night, where we start getting a lot of calls about water coming from riverside to landside. We have gate structures. And usually the primary is the flap gate or a duckbill, and if it's to flow out, it flows out. If it doesn't flow out and starts backflowing, someone's pop can gets in the way, a stick gets in the way, the river starts to come backwards, comes into the land. So we had to close down some gates at Georgia. I closed down the one at Marshalltown at our pump station. And like I said, now our footprint is now even expanding. So now we're at from Martin Luther King all the way to Bernice Road, and this is going on for a couple days now. There's our pump station to the left on Marshalltown, and that's when you have the water coming back from the river. Where that electrical source is supposed to be dry. So that was a not fun situation, but we were able to close down the gate. The pumps were pumping it, and we kept that area relatively dry. This is the storage area between Clark Street, which is meant to fill in. And now here's, I get to draw again. So here's one of the things that we did on Georgia Street. You see, no, this is, it's mislabeled. It's supposed to be Georgia. I apologize. So when we did this, Georgia is supposed to flow over under high events. In past years, we had to sandbag this area. I am from perspective wise, I'm taking a picture looking south off the bridge, off a 94 bridge, looking south on, don't mind what it says Clark, it's supposed to be Georgia. We raised the elevation of this road. We couldn't raise it the entire way, but we raised it here so that no sandbags would be needed. No human intervention would be needed, and it would contain itself within it. So what we did was we had some barricades back here to stop people from coming through, but yet it saved the city of Gary from having to throw sandbags for another closure, and that would have been another 4,000 or 5,000 sandbags. So this is how it worked, how we thought it should, and how it was designed to work.
That's raised like just north of what, 33rd? I think those are turned off to
33rd
homes
is
back there.
33rd is up here.
Yep. Okay. So it's north of 33rd.
Correct.
So, okay.
Now this is another project that we did. We raised the manholes, and we encapsulated them in those containers, and we vented them with what you see is that almost like shepherd's stick that's sticking out of it. This is the one off of Chase Street in the drainage area between the levee and the road. This is one that's completely submerged off of Broadway, right by IUN. Now see if I can get this to play. Wouldn't that be fun? I don't know if it will play. All right, well, if it did play, and I have an advanced knowledge, but that if you see that little vortex there, that is the water actually going into a manhole that had tipped over. And this is why we did what we did. Otherwise, this would have taken on and put immense pressure on the Gary Sanitary District, may have shut down their station, but also could have penetrated underneath the levee and flooded people without even us knowing it. So,
What year was that, Dan?
this was when I first started, so 2011, when this one happened, and this was just off of Chase Street. And the reason why we knew this one was I got a phone call from Dan Vicari saying, hey, look, we've got a bunch of fish in our screen at the pump station at Chase Street. What is going on? And it was actually a sunny day, if you believe it. And I said, I don't know. So we looked everywhere, and we found this manhole had tipped over. We had a rain event about 3 days before, but this manhole had tipped over from pressure, and it was taking in all the water from the river. So basically the river was going into that manhole, going to their pump station, and they were treating it. They were dealing with it. And so they were running at 100% capacity on a sunny day. So we eventually figured out a way to stop the flow into the manhole, and then ultimately a long-term solution was what we did, and that was build these, or actually the better few here, and that's actually I think the same manhole, and that's completely encapsulated so that there is no ability to tip over, and then it vents when we have that issue.
Also in the 2008 flood, A lot of the flooding in Gary, near IU campus, was due to this kind of situation where the manhole covers been blown off because of the pressurization from the flooding that went towards the river, and then when they were opened, when the river came up, it backflowed through the system and flooded out areas behind the levee. So that's why this was necessary.
Actually, and Bill says he has a picture of it, but there's an aerial picture, I think you said, of the water backflowing so much that in Gleason Park you see like a fountain coming up. That's how much it was coming through in '08. But so we worked with the Corps to get this, to get that approved and to fix it. So more storage, not to bore you. Clark and Colfax. This is just our normal patrols to make sure things aren't blocked up, make sure things are flowing. If they're not flowing, we need to make sure we can get someone. That the top left is Colfax. The bottom right is on Clark Street Bridge, looking to the east. Get myself confused. There's Oliver. I promised him I'd get him in the picture. Oliver works for Glem, and he takes care of our pump stations. And this is the picture off of our pump station on Grant East, looking to Grant Street. There you see in the background and how high that water was against the wall. Not yet threatening Grant Street itself, but something in the future. Oliver's going to hate me for putting him in this, but I told him if I had to be in it, he's in it. So there's our other Grant Street pump station. Right now, it was just at that point, it was just working off its sump pump, so it was working in fine shape. We didn't need a larger thing. This is the under of Broadway, so that you have an idea how small that water it has to go through. And then this is starting to get into Lake Station off the dam. If you look at the tree, I got there a little bit. Well, these pictures are from there. I was there initially when it was flooding, but you see the watermark on the tree on how high it really was at some point. And then this is Bellaboo off of Colorado. And then the left picture is the one that used to be the former trailer park in Lake Station, and the right is looking at the I-65 expressway right about Central Avenue. So on Thursday, we're still going through that. That was just a little respite of pictures. Thursday, during our monitoring, we start to see water fill up at the IUN parking lot, that little auxiliary parking lot on the far, the north part of campus. So we determined and we found that there was a gate that was backflowing there as well. So we had to shut that one down to make sure that IUN wasn't impacted. Ultimately, Saturday we went out. Water started to recede. We took down the barricades. Martin Luther King was opened. And then what I told you about those 4 culverts in 2008, what they look like. This was a picture from the inspection report from the Army Corps did in September. This will be a picture I tell people I'll never probably leave out of our presentation. But this is what it looked like in August of that year when they did the inspection. And then this is what it's supposed to look like. Now that certainly wasn't how it looked like in February, but that's how they have been open. And so far, besides that little weir that you see in the bottom of the screen that we're looking to address through DNR and our partnership with Audubon and Wetland Initiative, which they believe they can cultivate some good plantings back in that project. That's really what it's supposed to look like. So I'm happy that I got through the presentation. If all you guys that have been here for a lot of presentations, I haven't failed this one. So I was happy, and next time I do one, I'll feel a little more comfortable. So